Stop doing what most people call planning. Stop scribbling goals on sticky notes, feeling a rush of optimism, then watching the weeks melt into the same old chaos. If you've ever been proud of a goal and then quietly embarrassed by how little actually changed, this part is for you. I'm going to challenge you. Your problem isn't that you don't want success. Your problem is that you treat a goal like a wish and expect it to behave like a machine. Goals aren't fireworks. They're blueprints. You light a firework, it flashes, it's gone. A blueprint builds. The difference is not poetic, it's practical. Dreams excite you for a night, systems move you for months and years. When you confuse the two, you hand your life back to randomness and hope is a terrible project manager. Most goals fail for three brutal reasons. First, they're vague. Get fit, write a book, make more money. Noble but useless unless you translate them into clear, repeatable moves. Second, they're emotional, not structural. You wait to feel like doing the work. You'll wait forever. Motivation is fluctuant, systems are not. Third, you treat the goal as an event, not a direction. You believe success is arriving when success is a way of traveling. So where does planning actually begin if you're not sure what you want? It begins with clarity and limits. Clarity answers what and why with sharp, cold statements. Limits answer how much and by when with constraints that force decision. If you say, I want to be healthier, that's a wish. If you say, I will do 3 30-minute strength sessions per week and walk 10,000 steps daily for the next 90 days, that's a system. The system removes the question, should I, and replaces it with the statement, this is what I do. That is the first pivot. The first rule I want you to carve into your mind, choose system over emotion. Don't wait for inspiration. Install the mechanism that makes inspiration optional. This is not inspirational fluff, it's a survival tool. Structure creates habits, habits create results, results reinforce structure. It's a loop, and you can design it. Now, let's break the illusion of goals for the sake of goals. People love trophies on paper. They love the sense of being busy. They confuse motion with progress. You can check boxes all day and still stand in the same place. Progress requires alignment. Your daily actions must point in the same direction. Think of a compass. Goals without systems are like spinning a compass on a table and hoping it points north. Systems are the hand that aligns the needle. Why is structure stronger than raw motivation? Because structure isolates friction. Every time you make a decision, you pay a cost in attention and willpower. A system reduces decisions. It automates the direction so that you use your energy to execute, not re-decide. Want to write more? A system might be write 500 words at 7 a.m. every weekday. That removes negotiation. Your brain stops bargaining and starts doing. It's not romantic, but it works. Danger of chaotic movement. Many people fool themselves with activity. Chaos dresses itself as productivity. It's full of meetings, ideas, starts, dramatic bursts, and then collapse. It feels alive, but chaos is a parasite on your time. It eats the margins where deep work grows. Deep work needs an ordered scaffolding. Without scaffolding, your creative and productive work collapses under its own weight. If you're not sure what to plan because your desires are fuzzy, start with experiments. You don't need life-defining certainty. You need a testing framework. Pick one area, pick a simple metric, run 90 days, observe. If you're experimenting with fitness, track consistency rather than outcomes at first. If you're experimenting with writing, track output, not quality. Results will show you what you truly want. They'll also teach you what system actually suits you. Planning in this mode isn't permanent binding, it's iterative engineering. Let's talk about the structure of a good system. It has 4 parts: trigger, action, measurement, feedback. Trigger is the cue that starts the action. Action is the repeatable behavior. Measurement is the simple metric you check. Feedback is how you adjust. For example, trigger equals put your running shoes by the bed. Action, run 20 minutes. Measurement, days run per week. Feedback, if you miss 2 days in a row, change the time or shorten it. That loop is a tiny machine. Tiny machines, stacked daily, become unstoppable forces. One more practical rule: favor simplicity. Humans overcomplicate because complexity feels clever. But complex systems fail more often. The simpler your system, the more likely you are to follow it. Napoleon Hill and Earl Nightingale loved the idea of clarity of purpose. But purpose without a simple operating model is like knowing you want to sail without bothering which side the rudder is on. Keep it lean. Now, let's dismantle the myth that planning kills freedom. People fear that a plan chains them. The truth is the reverse. Good systems create freedom. When you automate decisions about how, when, and what, you free your attention to be creative inside the structure. A chef doesn't invent a recipe every time they cook. They use technique to express creativity. Same with your life. Systems free you to be brilliant where it matters. Here's a quick exercise you can do right now. Pick one goal that keeps resurfacing. Write it down in one sentence. Under it, write one behavior you can do every day for the next 4 weeks that supports that goal. Make it so specific you can say, I did it or I didn't. That specificity is the muscle. Start tiny if you must. Tiny wins compound. Don't underestimate the gravity of a small, consistent action. You also need a guardrail: accountability. Systems fail in isolation. Show your plan to one person, a friend, partner, or a mentor, and commit publicly. If public commitment feels too big, set up a tiny check-in: a daily text, a shared document, a calendar invite. Accountability converts fragile intention into reliable action. There's another invisible thing that kills plans: the internal story you tell yourself. You'll sabotage a sensible system with scripts like, I'm not a morning person, or I don't have time. Those are just habits of thought dressed as truth. You can rewire them by testing them. If you say, I don't have time, do the test. For 1 week, replace 30 minutes of scrolling with your system action. Measure what changes. Stories fall apart under measurement. I'll give you one hard truth. If you want a different future, you have to be someone who does different things today. Not someone who wishes, someone who shows up. This is where most people fail, not for lack of ability, but for lack of identity. Systems build identity. You don't become a person who writes by saying, I write. You become a person who writes by designing a system that produces writing and doing it until your identity shifts to match the evidence. Before I close this part, hear this. Plans fail not because they're wrong, but because they're built on the wrong priorities. Prioritize consistency over perfection, alignment over speed, small measurable progress over dramatic leaps. A single consistent action, repeated, will carry you farther than a grand plan you start and abandon. Now I want you to act. Pick one simple habit that aligns with one clear goal. Design the trigger, define the action, decide the measurement, and promise yourself to test it for 4 weeks. Make it ridiculously simple so you can't talk yourself out of it. Make the promise public in one small way. That tiny structure will teach you more than another hour of planning ever could. Write in the comments what one small action you're committing to for the next 4 weeks. Tell me exactly what will count as done on a day. Be specific. What will you do? When will you do it? And how will you measure it? Your answer will make this real. A system is not a spreadsheet you abandon after a week. It's a gravity well you build around your life. a set of repeatable actions that pull you toward results whether you feel like it or not. If part 1 woke you up to the difference between wishes and machines, this part teaches you how to build the machine that actually moves you. No fluff, just design. First, define what a system is in plain language. A predictable sequence of cues and actions that produce the outcomes you want. That's it. It has no personality. It has rules. Rules remove debate. Rules free you from the tyranny of willpower. A great system is boring in the moment and explosive over time. Start with repeatable actions. The grand gestures are seductive. The boot camp, the all-night sprint, the radical pivot. Those give headlines, not lives. The unspectacular daily micro-actions are the real engines. The 5-minute planning session, the single-focused hour, the nightly review, the habit of reading one useful page. Repeatability is the secret sauce. If it's repeatable for a month, it's likely repeatable for a year. If it's repeatable for a year, you're building an identity. Micro steps beat motivation. When the barrier to start is small, you win. Want to write a book? Commit to 300 words a day. Want to build strength? Commit to a 12-minute routine you can do in a hotel room. Want to launch a business? Spend 30 minutes 3 times a week on customer conversations. Keep the actions so small your brain doesn't attempt to talk you out of it. When you stack these micro steps, they compound into real progress. Design triggers. Triggers are the scaffolding that connects your environment to your action. Place your running shoes by the bed. Put the notebook on your pillow. Block a calendar slot and call it sacred. The fewer decisions you make, the less you stall. Your environment should be a series of gentle nudges toward the action, not a gauntlet of resistances. Now, build measurement into the system. Measurement doesn't have to be complex. In fact, it shouldn't be. Days per week completed, minutes spent, words written, sales calls made. Pick one metric, make it visible, track it in a simple chart or a habit tracker. Measurement turns fuzzy ambition into crisp feedback. It gives your system a heartbeat. Feedback is the fuel for improvement. Set a cadence for review. Weekly for tactics, monthly for strategy, quarterly for direction. Use the weekly check to answer one question. What worked, what didn't, and what will I adjust next week? Use the monthly check to inspect the system's friction and remove it. Use the quarterly check to decide whether the system is still the right vehicle for your goals. This cadence keeps the machine adaptive, not rigid. One focus principle. Choose a single North Star for a cycle. Multitasking kills systems. You might juggle many goals in life, but the system you optimize must have one main axis of force. If your main goal is a creative project, make the bulk of your daily system support that. Napoleon Hill talked about definiteness of purpose for a reason. Concentration amplifies results. Don't split your intent across many competing systems. Prioritize one and make the others maintenance mode. Habit stacking accelerates adoption. Attach a new small habit to an existing routine. After you brush your teeth, write a sentence. When your morning coffee is ready, review the day's top priority. Habit stacking uses the momentum of existing behaviors so you don't have to manufacture willpower out of nothing. Ritualize the start and the end. A start ritual signals to your brain that the system is engaged. A 5-minute setup, a playlist, a particular cup of tea. An end ritual closes the loop and primes you for recovery. A quick note about what you did, a 5-minute gratitude check, a stretch. Rituals create predictability and mark progress psychologically, which strengthens adherence. Make the system flexible, not fragile. Life will throw curveballs. The difference between resilient systems and brittle ones is optionality. Can you scale down without abandoning the system? If your running schedule is 5 days a week, build a scaled down version. 12 minutes at home equals a kept promise. If you can't write for an hour, write for 15. The system's core is consistency, not the perfection of each instance. Define your pacing and cadence. Some systems require daily micro-actions, others weekly deep work. Create a rhythm that fits your life. Deep work sessions should be protected like oxygen. Shallow work can be batched. Batch similar tasks to reduce context switching and keep focus high. This creates pockets of high-value productivity where your system does its most important work. Use simple automation where it helps. Automation is not cheating, it's leverage. Automate reminders, bill payments, or recurring tasks that drain attention. Use templates for repeated outputs. Free your cognitive bandwidth for the parts of the system that require human judgment. Scale the system by layering. Start with one small habit. Once it's stable, layer another that supports the same goal. Over time, you'll have a stack of small routines that together form a powerful engine. Resist the temptation to launch many layers at once. Increment slowly and consolidate stability before adding complexity. Deal with plateaus by drilling the basics, not by chasing novelty. When progress slows, reduce the system to its simplest form and execute flawlessly. Plateaus are often a call to deeper consistency, not more strategies. Repeated, clean execution wins over clever hacks. Guard against shiny thing syndrome. New ideas will always tempt you. Put a filter. Every new tactic must pass a simple test. Does it materially increase the output of your current system in the next 30 days? If the answer is no, file the idea and return to execution. Execution beats exploration when you need traction. Create a recovery rule. Systems require fuel. If you burn out, the system dies. Schedule deliberate recovery. Micro breaks, sleep, exercise, time with people who matter. Recovery is not optional. It's part of the system. Treat it like a non-negotiable resource allocation. Finally, give your system meaning. Systems can feel robotic unless they connect to a deeper purpose. Remember the why, not as a vague slogan, but as a specific value that the system honors. Your system should protect something you care about: your health, creativity, loved ones, independence. That meaning becomes the emotional anchor that keeps you going when the mechanics are cold. Practical template to use today. Choose one goal and apply this skeleton. Trigger. Where and when will the action start? Action. What is the smallest repeatable unit? Measurement. One simple metric to track daily, weekly. Feedback. Weekly review question and one adjustment rule. Commitment device. Public check-in, calendar block, or financial stake. Recovery rule. One non-negotiable self-care item. Write out these 6 items and commit to the 30-day experiment. Keep it ruthlessly simple. If after 30 days you're consistent, extend the experiment to 90 days and layer another micro habit. Now, I want to hear from you. Write in the comments the single system you will test for the next 30 days using the template above. Be specific. Name your trigger, the tiny action you'll repeat, how you'll measure it, and how you'll hold yourself accountable. Then tell me, what is the one thing you are most afraid of losing if you don't build this system? Your answer will force clarity and give you a reason to show up. Part 3. Your brain is not your enemy. It's an organ designed for survival, not for achieving your wildly ambitious calendar. That fact is both liberating and brutal. Liberating because you can design around it. Brutal because most people assume discipline will outmuscle biology and then wonder why they fail. The truth? Your brain will take the easiest route that still keeps you safe. It sees novelty as risk and repetition as safety. That's why a new plan feels heavy. Your nervous system is defending you from the very thing that will change you. So the first tactical truth: stop arguing with automatic responses. Don't shame yourself for resistance. Observe it, name it, give it a place in your plan. When you see resistance as data, not disgrace, you can engineer around it. Resistance often shows up as procrastination, distraction, or "I'll do it later." It feels personal, but it's mechanical. It's a predictable output of a brain wired to minimize perceived threat. How do you use your subconscious as an ally? Start by understanding its language: cue, routine, reward. This is not mysticism, it's neuroscience. The subconscious runs on patterns. Feed it clear, repeated patterns, and it will automate them. That's the power of habit. Your conscious choices set the pattern. Your subconscious executes when the conscious mind is busy or tired. So don't try to micromanage every moment. Program the pattern and let the subconscious carry the load. One way to program the subconscious is to make your system sensory and ritualized. Sensory cues, visual, auditory, tactile, jump the brain's attention straight to the routine. The smell of coffee paired with a writing notebook, the click of a timer that signals deep work, the laid-out clothes that remove decision friction. Rituals make the abstract mechanical. They convert will into a sequence. Cue triggers action. Action triggers measurable result. After repetition, your brain no longer debates the action. It recognizes the cue and moves. Energy is not infinite. You will not find focus by sheer will at zero energy. Focus is a resource you must manage like a battery. There are 3 levers: scheduling, environment, and pre-work rituals. Scheduling means doing your highest value tasks when your energy is at its peak. Environment means eliminating as many distractions as possible before you start. Pre-work rituals, even tiny ones, signal your brain to shift states. A 90-second routine that prepares you for focused work will preserve enormous amounts of willpower because your brain knows what to expect. Now let's deal with the internal script you keep repeating. I start and then I stop. That phrase is not destiny. It's a learned pattern reinforced by inconsistent systems. To overwrite it, you have to provide heavier evidence than the story. Stories are weak. Behaviors are proof. Short, consistent actions beat grand promises. If you claim, "I'm a person who finishes projects," but your evidence shows 3 half-done projects, the story will lose every argument. Replace that evidence with a new stream. Finish micro-commitments consistently. The weight of completion rewrites identity faster than any pep talk. There's a difference between planning and control, and most people confuse them. Planning is designing a path with guardrails. Control is trying to micromanage every variable. The world is not a spreadsheet where you can eliminate uncertainty. Control breeds rigidity and resentment. Planning builds tolerance for variance while keeping the core engine steady. Your brain prefers control because it reduces anxiety in the short term, but planning gives you leverage for the long term. Think of planning as creating flexible boundaries, not walls. Simplicity is the psychological shortcut to follow through. Complexity looks effective because it feels clever. Simplicity looks too easy and triggers skepticism. Your brain will test complexity first because it makes you feel busy and important. Don't fall for it. Simple systems reduce cognitive load. The easier an action is to start, the less energy it requires, and the more likely your brain will permit it. That's why the habit score method works. If you can reduce the start friction to near zero, initiation becomes almost automatic. Another powerful lever is emotional reframing. Your brain codes meaning to actions by attaching feelings. If your system is framed as punishment, I must do this because I failed before, your brain will resist. If your system is framed as identity building, I do this because I am the kind of person who protects their energy, your brain will cooperate. Find a value-based reason for your system that attaches positive emotion to the routine. Values stick where motivation slips. Use the if-then implementation intention to pre-wire reactions. Instead of waiting for willpower, script your responses. If it's 5 p.m., then I will write for 20 minutes. If my phone buzzes during a work block, then I will ignore it and respond at the next break. Implementation intentions are tiny contracts with your future self that the subconscious can follow without negotiation. The more you pre-commit, the fewer debates you'll have with yourself. Don't forget the power of constraints. Your brain, paradoxically, thrives when options are limited. Constraints force creativity and prevent analysis paralysis. Set boundaries, time, tools, scope, and then force the work within those limits. A 60-minute block with no internet can produce more quality than an entire day of open work full of interruptions. Constraints transform possibility into action. Chunking is a psychological technique you should use constantly. Break big goals into digestible, clearly defined pieces. The brain loves completion. Finishing a chunk gives a neurochemical reward that fuels the next effort. Design chunks so each one is a visible success. Writing 1,000 words is a chunk. Completing a single study session is a chunk. Chains of completed chunks shift your brain's sense of ability and alter the narrative it tells you about yourself. Beware of the perfection trap. Perfectionism is often masked as discipline. It's a procrastination engine because the brain is waiting for the right moment. But there is rarely a right moment. Launch the imperfect version, measure feedback, and iterate. Earl Nightingale said, "The opposite of fear is action, not knowledge. Action produces clarity. Your brain will reward evidence over hypotheticals." Create psychological short circuits for motivation. A short playlist that gets you into flow, a visual progress bar you update, a small immediate reward after a deep work session. These are not childish tricks, they are dopamine-friendly mechanics that help the brain associate work with reward. Be tactical. Link short-term satisfaction to long-term craft. Finally, measure the mind, not just the output. Track both performance metrics and psychological metrics. How did you feel before the session? How focused were you? Did you resist? What thoughts repeated? This meta-awareness trains the brain to notice its patterns and choose differently. Use a one-line daily log. Time, task, level of focus 1 to 5, one note. Over weeks, this tiny habit will reveal patterns you can't see in the moment. Here's a practical micro-protocol to rewire your brain around the system. Pick one high-value task and define a tiny start, 5 to 12 minutes. Create a 90-second ritual to signal start, breath, posture, trigger. Use an if-then plan for the most likely distraction. Track focus levels and completion each day in one line. At week end, adjust one friction point and repeat. Do this for 4 weeks and you will not try harder. You will be different because your brain learned a new economy of action. Now your turn. Write in the comments one internal story that always stops you, the phrase you repeat in your head when the plan meets resistance. Tell me the last time that story held true, and one tiny action you will prove it wrong with in the next 3 days. Be specific. Your honesty here is the raw material of change. Part 4. Think about a map and a car. The map is your goal. It tells you where you want to go. The car is your system. It carries you. If you obsess over the destination while your car is a mess, you'll never arrive. If you polish the car but never look up at the map, you'll drive beautifully in circles. Your task is to keep the map clear and the car reliable. That's the difference between dreaming and arriving. Goals are navigation. They point. Systems are transport. They carry. A goal without a system is an idea. A system without a goal is a treadmill. You need both, but they play different roles. The goal sets direction and meaning. The system provides the muscle and momentum. When the road changes, you don't abandon the goal immediately. You tune the vehicle and adjust the route. This is the skill of adaptive planning. Start by thinking of your goal as a vector, not a finish line. A vector has magnitude and direction. It can be prolonged, shortened, redirected. When you treat goals as vectors, you free yourself from the obsession with arrival and focus on steady velocity. Velocity beats sprinting bursts because it compounds. It is far better to move consistently in the right direction than to sprint randomly at full throttle. Now, let's talk about burnout. People treat goals like a final sprint. They pour everything into a burst, then collapse. The system that burns you out is not a system. It's a short-term tactic disguised as discipline. A healthy system includes rest and recovery baked in. If your plan expects relentless output without replenishment, it's not a plan, it's punishment. Build checkpoints where you measure both progress and energy. The healthiest systems balance output with restoration. Flexibility is your strategic advantage. Imagine you're navigating through a city during construction. The main avenue is blocked. A rigid plan insists on the closed route. A flexible system finds an alternate street and keeps moving. That doesn't mean you abandon the goal. It means you adjust tactics without losing orientation. The key tool here is modular plans. Break your strategy into interchangeable parts so you can swap methods while preserving momentum. When the plan stops working, don't panic. Diagnose. A failed stretch is data, not doom. Ask 3 questions. What changed externally? What changed internally? And what assumption was wrong? External changes are market shifts, health issues, schedules. Internal changes are energy levels, motivation, skills. Wrong assumptions are often the most dangerous. You thought X would cause Y, and it didn't. Distinguish between temporary friction and structural mismatch. Temporary friction calls for tweaks. Structural mismatch calls for reconfiguration. Learn to perform surgical adjustments. Small, precise changes beat sweeping rewrites. If your morning routine stops, don't scrap everything. Test replacing one action. If your weekly review shows falling metrics, change the smallest input that could cause the drop and measure. This is engineering, not drama. Tweak, test, and repeat. The more surgical your adjustments, the less identity you lose, and the faster you regain traction. Keep a contingency lane. Every robust system has a scaled-down version that is nearly impossible to abandon. Call it the minimum viable practice. If life implodes, what is the absolute minimum you can do that keeps the engine alive? For a writer, it might be 100 words a day. For a fitness goal, it might be a 10-minute bodyweight routine. Design this lane before crisis arrives. When you fall into chaos, move to the contingency lane rather than abandoning the road. Measure what matters, not what's easy. Vanity metrics flatter, real metrics inform. Words written, calls made, steps taken, these are real. Likes, fantasies, and plans are not. Set a small set of leading indicators that predict the result you want. Leading indicators are the daily behaviors that cause the outcome. They are actionable and within your control. Track them religiously. Use the data to steer the vehicle, not to punish yourself. Remember that systems can be both strict and kind. Be strict about the non-negotiables that keep the engine moving. Be kind about variables that are outside your control. The two work together. Strictness disciplines your actions. Kindness preserves your long-term capacity. If you're too strict all the time, you'll break. If you're too kind all the time, you'll drift. The art is in the tension. Recalibrate your expectations about speed. Real change is rarely a single seismic event. Most meaningful shifts are the result of repeated small moves multiplied over time. If you want a different life, ask yourself which small moves you can repeat for years. The velocity of tiny compound actions outpaces the energy of one-time grand gestures almost every time. Guard your focus like a resource. Systems often fail because people let their attention be stolen by noise. Create dedicated windows of work where your system can run unbothered. Protect those windows jealously. Tell people they are not allowed to interrupt unless it's an emergency. Turn off notifications. Close tabs. When you protect attention, you allow systems to perform at their highest efficiency. Use checkpoints to evaluate whether to pivot or persist. Schedule quarterly strategic reviews where you look beyond the daily metrics and ask whether the direction still aligns with your values and long-term goals. During these reviews, ask hard questions. Is the goal still worth the trade-offs? Is the system sustainable in 5 years? Does the system still align with your identity? A quarterly check prevents slow drift and ensures your vehicle still points toward the landscape you want. Leverage small wins as launch pads. The brain notices success, even tiny success. Use early wins to fund bigger moves. If you complete a 30-day experiment, reward yourself by increasing the scale of one element. That reward is not indulgence, it's an investment in momentum. Momentum buys time and options. Practice mental rehearsal for course correction. Picture likely obstacles and rehearse your response. If a key partner leaves, what will you do first? If an illness slows you down, what's your contingency? Mental rehearsal reduces panic and speeds decision-making when reality hits. It trains the mind to execute the surgical adjustments you designed earlier. Finally, connect goals and systems to values. Systems that are untethered from values become chores. Goals that are untethered from systems become fantasies. Align both to something deeply personal: freedom, dignity, family, mastery. When your system honors a value, it acquires emotional fuel. That fuel is what keeps you turning the wheel when the road is long. Practical action you can take now: write down your primary goal as a direction, not a finish line. Below it, list 3 system components that carry the goal daily. Then add a contingency lane, the smallest action you will protect if everything else collapses. Make those 3 items visible and test them for 30 days. Treat the test like engineering. Measure, tweak, measure again. I want you to put this into the comments. Describe one structural tweak you will make to your current system this week, something surgical and specific, and name the contingency lane you will protect if life gets messy. Be precise. What will you do, when will you do it, and what will count as done? Then answer this. If you could keep only one daily ritual that guarantees forward motion, what would it be? And will you protect it starting next week? Your answer will reveal where you choose to steer. Part 5. This is where everything either stitches together or unravels. You've learned the difference between goals and systems, how to build tiny machines that move you, how to work with your brain instead of against it, and how to steer when the road gets messy. Now we connect the dots: goal, action, structure, identity, until they become one living mechanism that carries your life forward. Listen, success is not a destination you reach and then park beside. It is an operating system you run. Once you accept that, your choices shift. You stop hunting for dramatic hacks and start engineering better processes. You stop worshiping peaks and protect the valleys where the real work lives. This means the real victory is the way you organize your days, not the appearance of a single trophy. If you want a life that scales, design an operating system that scales. Start with clarity about what you want your system to protect. Is it your energy, your craft, your relationships, your freedom? Name that priority with brutal specificity. When your systems are built to protect what you value, they stop being chores and become guardians. A system that protects your craft looks different from one that protects income or health. Define the primary currency, what you are building more of, and let that govern trade-offs. Next, connect identity to evidence. You don't tell yourself who you are, you show yourself through repeated acts. Identity is the cumulative ledger of small choices. If your system demands a daily practice, then each completed day is a deposit. Over time, your identity aligns to the deposits. Choose the smallest action that, if repeated, would make the identity shift undeniable. Want to be a reader? Read 10 pages every evening. Want to be a creator? Publish something small, weekly. The evidence beats rhetoric. Then, scale with intentionality. Scaling is not doing more of the same until you collapse. It's adding lean layers that magnify output without multiplying friction. Add a template, not 1,000 new tasks. Add automation that removes routine decisions. Add a backup person who can run the contingency lane when you can't. The goal of scaling is to raise output per unit of attention. When your attention is the scarcest resource, preserve it. Keep your feedback loops tight. Systems that rely on delayed feedback become brittle. You drift before you notice. Create indicators that tell you early whether the machine is working. Daily micrometrics, weekly health checks, monthly strategy reviews. These rhythms let you correct course when correction is cheap. The moment you wait until outcomes are months late, you've surrendered cheap adjustments to expensive overhauls. Remember the math of compounding. Consistency over time beats intensity in the short term. A single week of perfect work, followed by months of neglect, produces less than a steady year of modest but continuous action. Compound habits, not heroic bursts. The steady accumulation of small wins is the architecture of mastery. Invest in your decision hygiene. Every decision costs you willpower. Every unnecessary decision depletes the battery for the ones that matter. Ruthlessly remove choices that aren't strategic. Create default routines for meals, sleep, and work. Keep your top priorities on autopilot so that when friction appears, you have reserves to respond intelligently rather than reactively. Cultivate a learning loop. Systems must evolve as you do. Run experiments like a lab. Hypothesize, test, measure, and iterate. When something fails, harvest insight instead of shame. When something succeeds, probe the limits. Can it carry more load? This scientific stance removes drama and replaces it with curiosity. Curiosity is the engine that keeps systems fresh without fracturing them. Guard your relationships. Systems that succeed in isolation rarely produce a life you want. Make sure your operating system includes explicit time for the people who matter and rituals that maintain those bonds. Your network is both a mirror and a resource. It reflects who you are and supplies leverage when you need it. Don't let your system eat the relationships that give meaning to the results. Design friction strategically. If habit formation is the path to identity, sometimes you need to make bad options harder and good options easier. Add friction to temptations. Put your phone in another room. Require a two-step process to access distractions. Remove friction from your priorities. Set up your workspace, pre-write templates, or prepare meals in advance. Make the productive choice the path of least resistance. Keep a margin for unplanned good things. Systems are not anti-serendipity. In fact, a good system creates bandwidth for unexpected opportunities because it stabilizes your baseline. When your base operations are stable, you can say yes to chance without collapsing the machine. That's the paradox. Structure enables spontaneity. Practice gratitude with evidence. Every week, log 3 small wins and 1 thing you learned. This simple ritual does 2 things. It trains your brain to notice progress, and it builds resilience against the inevitable negative noise. Gratitude in this form is not passive sentiment. It's data that strengthens the system's psychological foundation. When you face a crisis, move to the contingency lane and preserve identity. Crises are not an identity test, they are a systems test. The question is not whether you can do everything perfectly, but whether you can preserve the core action that keeps you moving forward. Protect that action and let everything else flex. Now, a practical blueprint to stitch everything we've talked about into one living system. Define primary currency, the one thing you are building more of. Pick the smallest action that represents that identity and commit to it daily. Create a trigger and a 90-second ritual to start. Build 3 metrics: daily, micro, weekly, health, monthly, direction. Create a contingency lane, the minimum viable practice you'll protect in chaos. Schedule your weekly and monthly reviews with explicit questions to answer. Publicly commit to 1 accountability person or group. Automate 1 decision and add 1 template to remove friction. Preserve time for relationships and recovery as non-negotiables. After 30 days, celebrate a compound win and then iterate. This blueprint isn't trendy. It doesn't promise instant transformation. It promises a reliable engine. You can build an entire life from these parts if you treat them consistently. You will stumble. You will rework. That is the point. Systems are living designs. They require tending, not worship. One last ownership truth. External systems, coaches, planners, apps can help, but the core responsibility stays with you. You are the final integrator. You decide what to protect, what to sacrifice, and what to iterate. The most powerful systems you will ever build are the ones that reflect your priorities, your limits, and your values. Now, act. Write in the comments the primary currency you will protect and the 1 tiny daily action that proves that identity. Name your contingency lane and the measurement you will use to keep the machine honest. Be specific. What will you do, when, and how will you know you did it? Your comment is more than words. It's the first thread in the mechanism you're about to build. If you found value in this series, subscribe and like. It helps more people build systems that last.